Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, preparing for the worst. From the South Bay to North County, critical training for first responders. See how they would respond to a terrorist attack. And a growing health risk in our schools. Now San Diego Unified wants to sue one of vaping's biggest brands.
Paradise is a very special community, so people want to come back to this wonderful place.
Reclaiming their community. Paradise was destroyed by wildfire 1 year ago. Meet some of those who are rebuilding.
Help people in general, feel something that might make them treat their neighbor a little bit better.
And how a simple object can offer so much perspective. A new exhibit uses 3D printing to share the migrant experience. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. It's Wednesday, November 6th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. We begin tonight with being ready in the event of a major terror attack. Today it was all hands on deck, countywide. Local emergency response teams coming together to be ready to protect you.
Seconds save lives in regards to getting to these scenes.
The threat of foreign or domestic terror attacks have become all too familiar in recent years. Mass casualty tragedies putting the nation on watch, ramping up emergency training.
Based on current events, things that have happened across the United States, you look at Las Vegas, you look at some of the school shootings on the East Coast. Unfortunately, we have to train for these things.
Today, a full-scale terror drill in Chula Vista, simulating a coordinated attack with mass casualties in 2 separate locations in the county. The purpose? Testing coordination, communication, and response time.
This exercise really allowed us as a county to look at how do we respond to multiple high-stress, tragic events, one being at Legoland up in North County, one being here at the amphitheater in South County. But we wanted to see how we would divide our resources and make sure we send them to both locations and handle it appropriately.
1,000 people were involved in the training scenario, which helps identify any cracks in the system.
From these exercises, we always learn that things can be improved on, such things as communication, maybe between the fire department and police department, maybe some of the response tactics by law enforcement. We'll look at all of that and really hone our tactics and hopefully when we have an exercise again, we'll perfect those things.
Terrorism readiness drills have become common across the country, but county officials say it's especially necessary for San Diego.
We have one of the major military installations in the world right here in San Diego County. We have a border to the south, we have the Pacific Ocean to the west. So there's a vulnerability here, even though we're at the end of the line, that may not occur in other parts of the country.
But the county wants residents to rest assured. San Diego is prepared.
San Diego County is probably one of the best prepared and coordinated agencies of all the local, state, and federal agencies, first responders that would be responding to a major terrorist attack.
And this was the first major terror attack drill for the city of Chula Vista. A 3-day manhunt for 2 murder suspects comes to an end at the border crossing at San Ysidro. The men escaped from jail in Salinas on Sunday. The Monterey County Sheriff's Department says both were able to make it to Mexico. They were arrested by border officers last night as they tried to re-enter the U.S. at the pedestrian crossing.
What took place was about midnight last night. The 2 individuals tried to walk back into the country down at the U.S.-Mexico border. We had received information that they were in the area of Tijuana. Once we received that information, we notified Customs Border and Protection Agency, and they were able to locate them trying to walk back into the country. As far as improvements at the jail, I mentioned yesterday we've done at least 3 security improvements to that one particular housing unit, and before anybody asks, no, they are not going to be housed in the same housing unit.
Both men escaped by climbing through a hole they made in the ceiling of a jail bathroom. They had been in jail since last year, awaiting trial for separate murder cases. They're now on their way back to Monterey County. Now to a story KPBS has been following for weeks, the rise of vaping, especially among kids. A major e-cigarette maker is facing a lawsuit brought by schools. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong says San Diego might soon get involved.
As e-cigarette use and vaping-related injuries become more common throughout the country, San Diego Unified Superintendent Cindy Martin is calling for the district to join a recent class action lawsuit against e-cigarette producer Juul.
I will be seeking board authority for our district to be joining the LA Unified District in that lawsuit as well.
The announcement came at a forum on Monday where experts and educators gathered to discuss e-cigarette use on campuses. This lawsuit would supplement the district's efforts in counseling and educating students about the harm of e-cigarette use. Board member Richard Barrera said the district's multifaceted approach against e-cigarettes echoes past campaigns against the tobacco industry.
I think this was a combination of education leading to a movement among young people that we're not going to be exploited, and at the same time, particularly governmental agencies suing them and saying we're going to fight you there too, and we're going to take your money away.
The lawsuit filed by LA Unified School District demands compensation for the resources spent addressing student use of Juul products. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
A new government study found that more than a quarter of high school students currently use e-cigarettes. California and other states say they'll wait a bit longer to reach a settlement with the company at the heart of the nation's opioid crisis. 25 states and Washington, D.C. have sued Purdue Pharma, but the cases have been on hold to allow for bankruptcy negotiations. And today, the states asked a judge handling the case to extend the pause through next month. Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, previously arranged for a settlement with other states and local governments, but California and others say it doesn't go far enough. The governor's office in deep red Kentucky will turn blue. That's the big headline from election night 2019. Was it a momentary snapshot or a sign of things to come in 2020? Karen Kaifa shows us what the results mean for Republicans and Democrats.
Democrat Andy Beshear declaring the Kentucky governor's race against Republican incumbent Matt Bevin over.
I'm done with running for office. It's now time to govern.
And claiming a victory cheered by Democrats across the country. Bevin has not conceded and has asked for a recanvass of the vote. The tight race in a state President Trump won by 30 points in 2016 could signal trouble for Republicans next November, even if they seem unruffled now.
We're not concerned at all. You know, some of those governor's races are very specific, very parochial.
Trump had made an election eve appearance in Lexington with Bevin, downplaying Tuesday night's outcome. His 2020 campaign in a statement credited Trump with helping Bevin run stronger. The president was on the winning side of the governor's race in Mississippi, where he and Vice President Pence visited on behalf of Republican Tate Reeves. But in Virginia, Democrats worked a strong ground game to turn the purple state blue.
And this is an exciting day for the Commonwealth of Virginia. After 26 years, we are officially blue.
And attributing their success to suburban voters who will be crucial to the 2020 presidential contest. Democrats flipped both chambers of Virginia's legislature, emphasizing gun control and Medicaid expansions under the existing Affordable Care Act, which Republicans have sought to limit in Virginia and elsewhere. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, KPBS News.
A key figure in the impeachment inquiry was greeted by protests last night in Portland.
Hey, Gordon Sondland, tell the truth. Hey, Gordon Sondland, we're watching you.
Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, has amended his closed-door testimony. He now says there was indeed a clear quid pro quo between President Trump and the president of Ukraine for political help in exchange for military aid. More transcripts were released today, but so far we haven't seen or heard any testimony in the impeachment inquiry. That will soon change.
We will begin our open hearings in the impeachment inquiry next week. We will be beginning with the testimony of Ambassador Taylor and Ambassador Kent on Wednesday, and we will have Ambassador Yovanovitch testify on Friday. These will be the first of the open hearings.
And that's House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff detailing a big development in this process. Impeachment investigators have already heard from more than a dozen witnesses, including the 3 who will appear next week. Democrats are focused on what led up to and followed a July phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, open hearings in the impeachment inquiry are announced as another key transcript is released. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
They're called honor flights, a chance for our veterans to fly to Washington, D.C. to visit the various war memorials. And today, the San Diego Downtown Rotary Breakfast Club donated $35,000 to help cover the airfare for the organization's next excursion next May.
Our flights run $250,000 per flight to honor our veterans. That includes the airfare, buses, hotels, all of the different things that go into it. So it's a major fundraising project for every single flight, and this donation just is an incredible support to that.
Honor flights usually occur twice a year, with the priority given to the country's oldest veterans and veterans with terminal medical conditions. Honor Flight has flown more than 1,400 Southern California veterans to the nation's capital since 2010. If you were to migrate to a whole new place, what would you bring with you? That is the focus of an art exhibition at Liberty Station. I met the artist who talked to me about how a simple object can hold the memories of a lifetime. When you walk into the New Americans Museum, you may wonder where the art exhibit is. But if you look closer, you'll see a penknife, a bell, a figurine. And if you look even closer, you will learn about the stories embedded in these objects.
Each one of these individual stories come together as a chorus, in my view.
Carrie Ann Quick is the artist in residence here.
When you start with something specific, something completely surprising can unfold, something you never would have access to otherwise.
Something specific like a typewriter.
Like a typewriter, yes, yes.
For her exhibit called A Portrait of People in Motion, she spent over a year gathering treasured objects from San Diego residents. But more importantly, she gathered the stories that accompany them.
If we can feel some of that emotion about what it's like to try to figure out how to live in a new place, then maybe we can empathize with those who are experiencing the most extreme version of that discomfort.
The item is scanned and then 3D printed or laser engraved to leave behind what Carrie Ann calls a ghost. Transparent with faint detail, yet still teeming with the story of how it came to San Diego.
The story is the art piece. The objects that are represented here, they're just a way in to those stories. And yes, the objects are transparent, and that's on purpose.
Some objects are made of clear resin, others are acrylic.
The light, as it projects through the laser engraved surface, it creates a shadow where the writing almost becomes legible.
At first glance, they're hard to see against the stark white wooden furniture, designed to look like furniture in a home. But looking closer is exactly what Carrie Ann wants you to do.
And when they look closer and they wonder what the thing is that they're looking at, they are given access to the story that is behind it.
Carrie Ann also recorded the oral histories of each piece that can be played by dialing a number on your phone.
Welcome to A Portrait of People in Motion.
And then the corresponding number of the item.
My object is a jacket that when I was in Korea during the Korean War, this was a jacket that I in effect stole from the Army.
From 1971 to now, we've lived many places, and the recipes have gone with me.
My object is a little tiny Inuit figure that was given to me in 1945 by my first boyfriend, who was stationed in the Aleutians.
And I think just seeing it makes me feel at home because I grew up seeing it.
The crux of what I'm trying to do here is to help people in general, feel something that might make them treat their neighbor a little bit better.
And as the sound of plane engines roar above this little museum under the San Diego flight path, it offers a subtle reminder that we are all people in motion. And Carrie Ann Quick's exhibition, A Portrait of People in Motion, will be at the New Americans Museum until December 15th. We definitely felt it here in San Diego. October brought some of the hottest weather of the year, and it turns out it was the warmest October planet Earth has seen. The European Union's Climate Change Service says October 2019 beat out the previous record set just 4 years earlier. It's not just October. Every month so far this year has ranked as one of the warmest for that month. November has been cooler so far. Daji Aswad has tonight's forecast.
As we head into tonight, we're calling for partly cloudy skies, dropping down to 53 degrees. What we're going to notice for tonight and tomorrow are low clouds, especially as you head closer to the coast. Those are going to continue to build in as we have a weak onshore flow. So if you're in Ocean Side tonight, a low 43, dropping down into the mid-50s for Borrego Springs and 43 in Mount Laguna. Not a lot of precipitation to talk about, and that's going to continue to be the case for tomorrow. We're comfortable tomorrow, but changes are coming as we get a warming trend setting up here as we notice a bit more an offshore flow. Now, don't worry. I know when we say offshore flow, we often think of fires, but this offshore flow is not going to be a Santa Ana wind event. It is just going to bring warm air. Looking at a high of 74 tomorrow in Oceanside, 73 in San Diego, and 66 in Mount Laguna, lower 90s and Borrego Springs, and plenty of sun. High pressure will persist through the early week, and this will bring little to no precipitation. Air quality will be a concern, especially if we don't have a lot of mixing going on in the atmosphere. Overall, across the nation, many of us are quiet, but what we will notice points to the north are cold waves of air pressing out of Canada and bringing in some snowfall. So if you are traveling, you definitely want to check in with your flights anywhere points to the north of California. As for our extended forecast, we are warming up here tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday being the peak days with temperatures running 10 to 15 degrees above average. Lots of sunshine here in the inland areas and also warming up 90 on Friday and 89 on Saturday, cooling back down Monday, but still a bit warmer than average. Upper 60s into the mountains with plenty of sunshine. And if you're out in the desert, you're feeling the heat. It's very warm Friday, Saturday through the early week. As I mentioned, we'll notice a slight bit cooler air into the early week, but still maintaining some temperatures above average overall across the region. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Daji Aswad. Back to you.
State regulators have suspended the licenses of nearly 400 cannabis businesses, including 9 in San Diego County. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the businesses failed to enroll in a system meant to keep tabs on the state's cannabis inventory.
The state's track and trace system is supposed to monitor cannabis products so they don't end up on the black market. But as of last month, hundreds of licensed cannabis businesses hadn't set up accounts in the system. Alex Traverso, spokesman for the Bureau of Cannabis Control, says the cannabis industry is experiencing some growing pains.
Going from what we had prior to January 1 of 2018 to where we're at now, I think we knew it was going to be a process and it was going to take some time, and that it was going to be an adjustment period for a lot of people who have been doing things one way for some time now.
Gina Austin is an attorney representing 2 of the affected businesses in San Diego County. She says the track and trace system is confusing and state regulators are slow to respond to questions.
If you're busy running a business and trying to make sure that you're compliant in every way, and you don't follow up with the Bureau on a daily basis, hey, why didn't you email me back? Why didn't you email me back? Then you might have slipped through the cracks.
The Bureau of Cannabis Control says roughly 80 businesses had enrolled in the system on the same day their licenses were suspended, and that their licenses would soon be restored. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
It's open enrollment time for those who don't get health insurance through their job. There's Covered California. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar says more people could be eligible for financial help this year.
Martha Abad is a community health care worker at the La Maestra Clinic in City Heights.
¿Y tú tienes aseguranza por tu empleador?
Sí, por mi empleador. Okay. It's one of the many clinics in San Diego that offers free consultations to residents who aren't quite sure if they qualify for Covered California, the state's health insurance marketplace under the Affordable Care Act.
Sí, gracias.
Thank you so much.
Wednesday, officials from Covered California kicked off their outreach campaign to tell Californians that this year they might get help paying for health insurance even if they didn't before.
This year, over 1 million Californians are going to be eligible for more financial help. The state is putting money on the table for people across the income spectrum, but for the first time, middle-class Californians, people that make as much as $150,000 a year for a family of 4, might be eligible for financial help.
They say the money is coming from tax dollars and the reinstitution of the fine people will have to pay on their 2020 taxes if they aren't covered. About 100,000 San Diegans are already receiving financial assistance from Covered California, and officials guess as many as 50,000 more might benefit.
Well, thank you. I wasn't planning on being here.
Sean Benoit has been using Covered California for almost 3 years.
Well, I have health insurance, and at a much lower cost, and good health insurance. Like I said, when my appendix burst, I was in private room. I had a infection specialist, I had a stomach specialist. I had every day they would come in and talk to me, and when I left there, my total bill was $94,000, and my out-of-pocket was $1,300.
To find out if you qualify, log on to coveredca.com. In just a few minutes, the site will find plans you're eligible for based on your household income, zip code, and number of family members. The deadline is December 15th to get covered by January 1st. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom is threatening a takeover of PG&E, the bankrupt utility linked to recent deadly wildfires. Newsom and a top PG&E executive met privately to discuss the company's plan to emerge from bankruptcy. The company is facing billions in liability due to fires that were started by equipment problems. Recent precautionary blackouts have also been heavily criticized. Governor Newsom says a takeover could happen if the bankruptcy process isn't finished by June of next year. This week marks 1 year since the deadliest and most destructive fire in California history. Nearly all of the homes and businesses in one town were destroyed. AP reporter Haven Daly shows us how Paradise is rebuilding.
Remember, we were hosing down the house.
Jennifer Siemens and her son Hunter walk where their home once stood, now an empty field.
My room was over there. Beautiful pond right here.
They escaped the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California history with their lives, but lost everything they owned.
You know, it's sad. There was a whole life. We were planning our whole life around this house. We had worked so hard to get it.
It's been 1 year since the wildfire killed at least 85 people and destroyed about 95% of the town of Paradise. Now, most streets remain eerily empty, with Paradise's former population of 26,000 people reduced to just 3,000. But signs of recovery can be seen and heard.
We're finally turning the corner on cleanup. As you can see behind me, we're building.
By the end of the year, town officials say more than 500 houses will be in the process of being built.
Okay, I'm going to take this off and make 2 more copies.
A small step to replace almost 9,000 homes that were lost.
Paradise is a very special community. So people want to come back to this wonderful place. And it's not just about its physical location. It was the pride in the community and their friends and their neighbors.
The more you drive around town now, the more you're seeing the building, you're seeing the businesses reopen.
Nikki Jones lost her home and her businesses, but she's already reopened a brand new restaurant she hopes will help with the recovery.
From the day the fire happened, I never had any thought of leaving.
It's not just new homes and businesses under construction. New roads and infrastructure must also be rebuilt. PG&E, blamed for causing the fire, is burying every one of its power lines in Paradise underground. Like many former Paradise residents, Siemens found a temporary home in a nearby town. And like thousands of her former neighbors, she too hopes to someday move back to a new and improved Paradise.
We're not just letting it be a devastation, we're turning it around and we're making it a positive thing, We're rising literally from the ashes.
Haven Daily, Associated Press, Paradise, California.
And here's a survivor of one of California's more recent wildfires. This great horned owl was rescued from the Maria fire in Ventura County. Firefighters found it in a pile of ashes suffering from smoke inhalation, but it's expected to make a full recovery. The owl was nicknamed Ram after the LA Rams. Here's a recap of tonight's top stories. A major coordinated terror drill was carried out today. More than 1,000 people took part. The scenario simulated attacks in 2 locations in Chula Vista and Carlsbad. The exercise helped agencies learn how to work together to respond to a large-scale incident. 2 murder suspects who escaped from a jail in Salinas last weekend have been caught at the border. The men had been on the run since Sunday. Police received a tip that they were spotted in Tijuana. They tried to re-enter the U.S. at the San Ysidro crossing late last night, and that's when they were arrested. San Diego Unified Schools might join a lawsuit against the vaping company Juul. Superintendent Cindy Barton says she will take her request to the school board. The case is led by the LA Unified School District. It blames the e-cigarette maker for creating an epidemic of youth vaping, which has been linked to illnesses. And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. The San Diego Asian Film Festival starts on Thursday. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando will tell us about this year's event. And on Midday Edition, crossing the border for an education, how more people are heading south due to the high cost of living and tuition in California. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.